She pinched his cheeks and Jones winced. "Heh, what's the matter?" said a voice in the darkened area near the curtain. "Little Bo Peep lost her sheep sweeble?" Jones's smile broke into a laugh as a man in a long, dark leather coat stepped forward. "That's funny." "No, what's funny is the way that chick treats you." He had dark brows and eyes, and a silver cross earring dangled from his left ear. His hair curled and danced down his neck. He looked as if another shave might have smoothed out his narrow face. When he smiled, his bright teeth never were fully exposed. He lit a cigarette. "Hey, the fire marshal says no smoking." "Good for him. You're the guy on the phone, Stefani." "Very good, Jonesy. Cocoa Stefani. They call me Matthias." "Wonderful. Listen, you're coming with me back to New Hampshire. Old man Fletcher already paid for the airline seats. In case you're interested, I'm about to be honored by the high school." "That right. You're wasting your time here in this place. I know you grew up here, but we're offering you a college coaching job." "I told Fletcher I was happy here." "The old man don't care what you told him. He ain't gonna rest until at least you go back and scope out the town," said Holly. "It's a wonder somebody didn't shoot Lester." "I came close," said Coco. "Real close." "Say, Coach," said Holly, her smooth hand holding Jones's hand, "I get off at midnight." "We'll catch up," said Jones as she stood. He watched her leave and then caught sight of Coco nodding. "Good line, Jonesy." Jones finished the beer. "She's cute. Hey, Junior, play Jonesy at darts. I'll send a pitcher of beer over. I need to make a few calls out back." Where Bucky was still sawing wildly and swearing openly. Jones could see no progress as he cut the cold metal. "Excuse me, Mr. Driscoll," said Povich. Steam moved upward from the elongated, sweaty stretch along Bucky's back. In the cold air, he curled his lip upward and breathed heavily. "Huh? I believe you misplaced the key." "Ah, don't you worry, Dr. Povich. I've had years of experience in security." "Your hat," said Povich. "Oh, I don't need no hat. The cold and me. Hey, we're good buddies," said Bucky, and with saw in hand, he faced the chain again. "No, the other day in my office you taped the key to the visor of your hat." Jones looked to his right and retrieved Bucky's hat from the car hood. Under the visor was a long piece of masking tape. The key was stuck to the adhesive when he peeled it back. Bucky, still looking confused, held the hacksaw in his hand. Jones pulled the key from the tape and handed it to him as Povich slowly returned to his car. "Ha! No wonder I couldn't find it." Jones pinched the bridge of his nose. Bucky walked back to the chain and was about to place the key in the lock, but he dropped it in the snow. Joe fled to Boston, put a cloud over his star player's claims of innocence. In the back office, he heard someone coughing. The overweight mustached Bosco, with disheveled sandy red hair, strutted through the doorway. He wore a maroon blazer stained at the upper pocket, and his yellow paisley tie, loosened at the neck, followed the curve of his round belly over his solid blue shirt. A smoldering cigarette butt was stuck between his cracked lips, and his eyelids hung heavy. He balanced the cigarette in his yellow teeth and raised his bushy brows as he spoke. Jones sniffed a potent cologne. "Jones, I'm so honored." He took a drag on the cigarette. "And the police chief of that hick little town of Hamilton. The Sticks." "Shut up, Kip," said Strickland. "I suppose you're here about that Sabota kid." Jones stepped forward, brushing Kip's cushioned belly. "I want the medical examiner's report." "And who the hell are you, smart boy? The coach who thinks he's a private investigator?" "Matthias has my stamp of approval." "Whoa, big whoop!" Bosco laughed again, and Jones fought his anger as he tried to concentrate on Joe's problems. He moved right up to the red-faced Bosco. "Where is Joe?" "Well, your football hero's got himself in deep doo-doo." "What was Joe doing linking up with some hooker?" asked Jones. "Hey, she found the kid, and you know how it goes, Coachy." "No, I don't know how it goes." I knew she had a relationship with him, but she never stopped turning tricks either. The woman was gorgeous, tall, long brown hair, slim with all the right proportions. She had a setup. That's great, Kip. But how did she find a Hamilton College football player? Was she on campus? I don't know anything about that. Kip furrowed his brow and his fat face compressed into a confused expression as he thought. Then he raised his index finger. I know they were at Club Max all the time. I suppose they met in there. Club Max? Club Max is across town, Jones. I know where it is, Kip. On River Street, about a mile from the crosstown bridge, said Kip, not listening. Jones thought he was drunk. Hang out for lowlife. They get in my way, I just beat 'em up. You beat 'em up? Jones grinned. That I'd like to see. Hey, you're asking for it, Coachy. So you think that's where he met the woman? Asked Travis. If there's a place to meet a hooker, that's the place. Clicked off the radio and abruptly stopped his Jeep in front of the Enterprise's yellow brick building on Main Street. He exited the Jeep and shook his head as the Herbert Lane commercial repeated in his head. From the sidewalk, the office lights shone over the blinds and the outside shrubs. A lanky man in a blue suit and hat was hunched over a typewriter, and cigarette smoke expanded around his crumpled-rimmed hat. Jones climbed the cement steps and rapped on the aluminum frame door. He waited, wondering if the student in custody was romantically involved with Davis. Inside the lobby, the man from the typewriter, his wrinkled powder blue suit as creased as his face, appeared at the door with keys in hand. A multicolored feather pierced his matching cockeyed hat, and a smoldering cigarette hung from the corner of his mouth. He fiddled with the lock, twisted the keys, and opened the door. The heavy lobby smoke irritated Jones's eyes. 3 shots in the chest. I don't think we've met. I'm Matthias Jones. Jerry St. Clair. How are you, bub? He locked the door and stepped back in the lobby. For a few seconds he was unsure where to tuck the keys and finally dropped them in his pants pocket. And a Hamilton student in cuffs. Yeah, that's right. But you need to keep this story spiked. Nobody tells an old cub reporter to spike a story. Yeah, right. Jones followed him into a side office. Jerry returned to the typewriter, sat at the old creaky wood chair and pounded on the keys. Don't you use a computer, Jerry? Word's out on you, Jones. On me? Yeah, well, Tom gives you the thumbs up, he said, typing with both index fingers. Tom got his start with your paper. Yeah, I was his boss in Philly before I bought the Enterprise. He worked the grind for me on the city desk. Jones raised his brows as the typing continued. Sounds like we got a homicide to investigate. What do you mean? Jones raised his brows. Look, Jerry, my dad was an investigator and I've investigated a few murders, but hey, we'll take the friends and associate angle on this one. People like Davis, they come and go over the years. I worked a case in 47, downtown Philly. Guy was tapping every broad he could get his hands on. He liked the skirts. Listen, Jerry, did McGill leave a number up in Maine? Incognito, pal, incognito. I'm going over to Toby Lake to meet George Strickland, but I think I'll stay clear of investigating anything here. We're both eager to leave for Maine, but I think we'll be leaving late. Jerry nodded and set the cigarette in a dirty ashtray loaded with spent butts. He leaned back and produced a raspy laugh. You're bowing out, huh? I'm going to detail this murder in a series of page 1 exclusive. Didn't think you were yellow. Jerry stopped typing and swiveled around. Don't think the old duffer still has it, do you? I never said anything about... Listen, he said, rapping Jones in the ribs. Spent 40 years in the streets, hotshot. I know how to develop a story and bring in the readers. Yeah, I'm sure you do. What do you know about newspapers? I don't. What? I said, what? Jerry, I don't care, said Jones in a louder voice. Ah, the coach has a temper. Everyone has a character fault, bud. Jones shook his head. You know, Bucky would get into trouble standing still. Let's round up the boys. He blew his brass whistle. The group converged around the coaches. Ani Dewis, cigarette hanging from his mouth, clawed his way over the right field chain link fence. He was stuck for a few seconds before he fell onto the right field grass. When he stood, he picked up his dark-rimmed glasses and quickly lit another cigarette. Who the heck is that? Asked Mac. The sponsor of this camp. I can still see him bugging Ricky last month at the Colonial House. Jones exhaled. Mac, can you get the boys set up? Mac nodded and Jones trotted to the outfield. Arnie wore a Yankees jersey and waved in a wide arc. Matthias! Arnie, looks like I'm right on time. Time for what? Locke's car now zoomed past Arnie's pickup and continued toward the music conservatory. You look like you could use some help, said Arnie, elbowing Jones in the ribs. Not as young as you used to be, huh? Look, Arnie, we appreciate the funding for the camp. Everybody knows you couldn't raise the dough. That's not true. We had plenty of pledges. Yeah, right. Arnie blew smoke around Jones's face and put out the cigarette. Can't take the smoke, huh? Jones raised his index finger. Look, Arnie, do you know who you're dealing with, Matthias? I played semi-pro ball. You? Jones could not halt Arnie from trekking to the infield. Where did you play semi-pro ball? The Yankees team in Roswell, New Mexico. They reached the infield dirt. Isn't that where all those alien stories started? True stories, said Arnie, exhaling again. Arnie, put out the cigarette. Oh, yeah, he said, throwing it on the dirt. Jones shook his head and snuffed out the cigarette with his sneaker. Hey, Macca! A different sound cracked off the library bricks. Jones looked to the kids passing the baseballs by the third baseline. Then he heard a dog barking inside the open conservatory window past center field. Bucky's voice was muffled behind the door panels. Identify yourself. It's Matthias Jones. What's going on in there? Who? Matthias! Now Bucky's voice was on a megaphone behind the doors.
Clear the area. All personnel will exit the building.
Bucky, I'm the only one in the building. Open the door. What's going on in there? After a long silence, Jones pounded on the door. Bucky, I heard gunshots. Oh, it's you, Matthias. The battery is dead on my shortwave. Open up. I can't do that. We have a murder scene here. Jones shook his head and pulled out his cell phone from his back pocket as Arnie Dewars entered the lobby. Hey, Matthias! Do we need the paramedics, Bucky? Who was shot? Said individual has expired. Jones dialed George Strickland's number at the police station. Who? Who's dead?
Hamilton, Ned.
Ned, get George.
He's playing checkers with Wendell. Wendell's lost 4 in a row. Although sometimes I think George lets him win.
Ned, there's been a murder. The phone dropped, rattling Jones's ear. Arnie lit a cigarette as he approached. Arnie, stay at the outside door and don't let anyone inside. What's the matter, you little shaky? Jones stepped onto the road that led through the trees to a brighter area ahead. Look, Bucky, does Katrina know Sean Grogan? Nope, the doc does not know him. Jones's cell phone rang. Well, she's not a doctor.
Jonesy, I'll make this short and sweet. Our favorite strawberry blonde was brought into the county psychiatric hospital only 2 weeks ago. Somebody high up arranged it.
That's incredible. And she lied. Somebody took Kostecki out of the hospital. Maybe she cleared the way. And then Mulvaney shows up.
Uncle Dulio and his boys are looking for Newhouser. We need to know why the hell he was hanging out near Stewie and Susie Q.
I don't think Herbert Lane and Kevin know any of this.
Hey, Lane's got his own problems. Talk to you.
Through the opening, Jones clearly saw a Carruthers shack in the sunlight. He stuffed the cell in his jeans pocket. What's to stop somebody flying in small cargo into this field and trek it down to the parking lot? I'd get a chopper. Right, said Jones. Jones stepped onto the narrow field and imagined the outer trees being a part of a larger airfield years ago. Hey, what is this, a campground? We could have an overnight here, said Bucky, moving ahead. Make some s'mores. Bucky, stay back. Carruthers has a gun. This guy ain't gonna be scared by no BB gun. Bullet zipped through the grass and Bucky dived to the ground. Warren, it's Matthias Jones. Bucky covered his helmet and kept his face down in the grass. Warren, I need to show you a picture of Don Kostecki. Why? Asked the faraway voice in the shack. I need you to identify him. Go away, Jones. Hey, we have firepower, yelled Bucky as he stood. Bucky, you idiot, shut up. Who's with you, a cop? I'm a highly trained security expert. Carruthers fired again and Bucky leaped back into the grass. Huh, I don't want to die. Then shut your big mouth, will you? Jones scrambled back into the woods. Come on, Bucky. I ain't moving, said Bucky from the grass. Bucky, Warren Carruthers is a drinker now, come on. Hey, don't tell me what to do. Another 2 shots cut the grass and Bucky rolled toward the woods. Jones helped him to his feet. Are you all right? Hey, how'd you like that move? Brilliant, said Jones sarcastically. Thanks, said Bucky, pulling up his
Driscoll,
shorts.
holding a water bucket, rounded the corner of the barn. A beautiful auburn-colored thoroughbred stuck his snout out the end of the stall. Bucky said something to the horse. What the hell is he doing? Asked Cocoa, increasing his pace. Hey, what are you, deaf? Said Bucky loud enough for Coco's eyes to widen. Hey, don't yell at my horse, moron! Huh? Asked Bucky, turning. Then he looked back at Vinny. A simple command, you dumb horse. Count to 5. How difficult can that be? Yeah, can you do it, Driscoll? Huh? Get the hell away from my horse! Bucky stared into the horse's eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are you, stupid? Cocoa grabbed Bucky's red Hamilton College windbreaker and hoisted him up the barn board. You listen to me, rodent. That horse cost me 50 grand. Bucky's double chin bunched into his sweatshirt. Well, you got jib, Cocoa. That dumb horse can't even count to 5. Neither can you, pea-brain. Yeah, I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there. Ah, congratulations, said Cocoa, letting go of Bucky. Bucky fell onto the ground and rolled again. You don't get out of here and I'm going to tie you to the saddle and drag your fat ass around this track. Bucky stood and brushed the straw off the windbreaker. I knew Arnie was wrong. Yeah, well, he usually is, said Jones, trying not to laugh. Arnie told me that certain horses understand what you're saying and some of them can actually talk. Cocoa sneered at Bucky as he looked around the stall. Where's Webster, doofus? Oh, he was pretty sick, said Bucky, turning to Jones. Cocoa furrowed his brow. What do you mean he was sick? Stomach, said Bucky, getting closer to Jones. Arnie talked with old Pete up in the Fletcher stalls last Christmas. Who's your jockey, Cocoa? We're using Shoddy Pataki. We've used him before. He's clean. Arnie had a few at the Dewey's party, said Bucky, as Jones looked at him briefly. Do you know that horse told him that Loch Lawson was going to drive his car into the Beaver Dam swamp? Hey, Driscoll, take your talking horse stories back to the farm. Yeah, well, you think I'm crazy, but Arnie heard that horse talk. You're a dimwit, and so is Dewey's. I have a high IQ. Yeah, well, when you pass the horse's IQ, you let me know. There you go, Mr. Smarty Pants. A horse has to have an IQ in order to talk. Beat it, Driscoll, said Cocoa, pulling back his leather jacket and exposing his handgun in the shoulder strap. Hey, you don't have to get rough, said Bucky, backing up and knocking over a bucket of water, scaring the horse. The horse neighed as Cocoa patted his snout. It's okay, Vinny, okay. Look, Vinny, you have my permission to kick that silly rodent if he comes by here again. I didn't know you could talk to a horse, Cocoa, said Jones. You watch yourself, Jonesy. I don't want to lose this race because Driscoll pulled one of his stunts. Pushing Jones across the ring. Jones prayed he would not be trapped in the corner. His quick jab, used against the Iron Man, had not come within a foot of Palooka's weak shoulder. Then he was hit with a punch to the ribs he hadn't seen coming. He backtracked not like a fighter, but like someone running the 220. The crowd had gathered around the ring, and the yelling sounded like a championship match. Jones realized he would never get a chance to punch this Hulk. All he could do was circle and stay back. But Palooka was an experienced fighter. He bore in slowly, even though Jones stayed away from the ropes. The next punch came from Palooka's cocked right glove. Jones saw it coming but could not get out of the way. The force knocked him onto the ropes and sent his mouthpiece into the crowd. He slid down the ropes, his nose bleeding and his cheek pulsating. The referee, a scrawny little man with electrified hair, began the count. Somehow Jones sprang to his feet, shocking Palooka, who thought he had already won. He pummeled Palooka's stomach and shoulder. Then Palooka hit Jones with stinging counterpunches and a right cross that sent him to the canvas. At first everything was black, but then the gridded ceiling came into view. He heard Palooka laughing at him as he climbed up the ropes. Jones raised his arms and gloves for protection. As Palooka called him a sissy sucker puncher, the larger man began an attack that felt like metal pipes against Jones's forearms. Coco's voice boomed over the crowd and the entire gathering. "Hey, chick, what are you doing? Get him out of there!" Dulio leaped up and ripped the ropes from the stanchions. Then he yanked the rest of the ropes and threw the remains back into the gym. Palooka stared at Dulio and hit him with dozens of punches. Dulio just stood in place and then walked toward Palooka. Like a diesel train, Dulio advanced and lifted Palooka over his head and hurled him against the wall. Palooka's lifeless form bounced forward and ended up back in the ring. Dulio brushed his sports shirt. "What the hell is going on here, chick?" yelled Coco.
5 seconds and Jones would have lasted the round.
5 seconds and Palooka would have killed him. Are you losing your friggin' mind, chick? Coco climbed into what was left of the ring. Dulio checked Jones's face and wiped the blood off his cheek and nose.
"Jones, are you alright?"
"I think so." "You're going to PW Medical, bro." He turned toward Chick, who was telling everyone all bets are off. "You got ethics violations here, Chick. That was real stupid."
"What about my boy Palooka?"
"To hell with Palooka. You get up here and check out Jonesy, and then we're all taking him to Prince William Medical."
Tiny college town of Hamilton, New Hampshire is in shock today with the death of one of its most beloved citizens. It wasn't just the tragedy of 43-year-old Leo Crowley being murdered. It was how he was murdered below a house foundation of the Applegate development.
Gray-bearded Clayton Morris stood in front of a concrete foundation pylon. His name appeared in yellow letters on the bottom of the screen with the title Medical Examiner.
Dr. Morris, how long has the body been in the concrete? Well, I can only say that we'll have a full summary once the official investigation gives us clearance. Was Crowley dead before he was placed in the concrete? Sorry, can't comment, but I will say I've never seen such a murder in all my 41 years as a forensic pathologist.
Jones turned to Aunt May. "I can understand Clayton not saying anything right now." "Who is that?" asked Aunt May. Jones's face slowly tightened as Arnie Dewar stood in a blue-striped Dewar's lumber shirt. He wore a white baseball cap with the lumberyard logo Dewar's written on a saw. "Arnold Dewar's?" asked Jones, laughing. "I've never heard Arnie called Arnold."
Yeah, I was out here early dropping off some stock from my lumberyard, Dewar's Lumber, Hamilton, New Hampshire,"
said Arnie, raising his voice and pointing to the company name on his shirt.
"What exactly did you see, Mr. Dewars?" "Well, I was doing some trash pickup."
Oh, what a liar! George told me he was illegally dumping trash and garbage on the project so he wouldn't have to pay the landfill fees.
"And I see this work boot sticking out of the concrete. When did you realize there was an actual body in the concrete?" "Oh, I could tell by the contours." "How so?" "I have an eagle eye."
He didn't know. Jones thought he heard Bucky Driscoll somewhere near the camera. The video quickly switched to the entrance of the development. "I know I heard Bucky Driscoll in the background." "You mean that goof who keeps dialing and says he has the wrong number? Bucky's been dialing your number? He said he was in security and a few other things I prefer not to say." "What did he say, Aunt May?" "He said I was a, quote, goddamn liar and he'd get a legal injunction." "You never told me that. I'll kill that little rodent." Jones's face was flushed when he turned back to the TV. The reporter walked along the front of the Applegate entrance.
"This is an ongoing story, Peg, and we'll keep you up to date. Ben Jarvis, Hourly News Channel."
Poor Leo. Why was he killed? As Travis pulled away from the Colonial House, Jones answered the phone.
"Jonesy, you need to come over to the club."
"Coco, I'm very tired."
"Hey, I got the old man's number. They're opening up Fletcher's account in about a half an hour. Look, if you come over to the club, I'll get you the skinny on why I wanted that phone."
"We can do it in the morning."
"Oh yeah? What if I told you there might be something on there that will lead to the old man's killer?"
"Tell me now."
"Jonesy, I won't know until they open the damn phone."
"What do you know?"
"I'm just saying that there are things on that phone that could finger the killer."
"Okay."
"You want me to send a limo?"
No, I'll drive. I'll see you in a half an hour. We have a list of people that call the old man's phone, and Anna Banana is one of them. So what? He was her father. Did you tap into the voicemails? What do you think they've been doing all this time? Yeah, we got her calling and demanding money from the old man. She really laid into him, real nasty. She demanded or she asked for the money? Demanded. She's trouble, Jonesy. I told you that. That's why I'm surprised you were rolling around the floor at the Colonial House with her. Jones was about to take a gulp of beer and he set down the bottle. Who told you about that? You need to be more careful, man. If you want girls, I got 'em here. Jones shook his head. It was an accident. Yeah, right. Famous last words. Anna Banana's been back to Hamilton. A lot. How do you know this? She called the old man from here in the city. She may have even been in the club. We have to check that out. Something is fishy with this chick. But then again, you already know that, Jonesy. Jones shook his head. What about Harmon? Harmon ain't on the voicemail, but he did call the old man 5 times since last Friday. No message left. We have Harmon's number. We had the opportunity to kill Hamilton because Holling saw him. We'll see how smart Mr. Harmon is. Now, what I'm about to tell you goes no further than here. No Strickland, no Phillips, no DA, nothing. Okay? Your Fieldhouse investors include the mayor, some of my connections, and Tony Moretti from Boston. Jones just stared without saying a word. Everybody is making a profit on the deal. Nobody at the college knows that the old man put this together. Again? Again? How do you think he funds that college, Jonesy? Moretti is a gangster. What do you mean, gangster? Coco leaned back in the chair. Jonesy, you're talking about this like it's some Jimmy Cagney movie out of the 1930s. When the old man needed money, I lined it up. It's all a matter of business. Well, how legal is it? What do you care? You got your field house? Jones stood and turned toward the river. Did any of these investors murder Hamilton Fletcher? Coco lit a cigarette and joined him at the slider. After taking a drag, he lowered his voice. Listen, Moretti has no reason to murder Fletcher, or even have
in a black suit with a thin blue tie, waited for Uncle Dulio outside the hearing room of the Prince William Courthouse. Testifying courtrooms and lawyers made Coco nervous. Coco's loyalties would be tested with the logbook scandals having been broken by Darrell Younger at the Gazette. Coco knew too much. Uncle Dulio, still drying his massive paws on several paper towels, emerged from the men's room next to the hearing room's dark wood door. Through the archway to the right, Coco watched lawyers and clerks passing by and climbing the wide staircase to the courtrooms upstairs. I need a cigarette, Dulio.
Let's step outside,
said the larger Dulio. Where's Macaulay? As Coco moved through the oak door beyond the incoming security scanners, the noisy traffic returned and he stepped onto the sidewalk. He quickly lit a cigarette with his lighter. Smoke from the cigarette spread into the cool April air as the traffic on Main Street pulsed from the traffic light at the corner. You know lawyers, Dulio, they're always late.
Especially Boston lawyers who don't know Prince William.
Right. I just want to get this clown show over with and head to Fenway. You sure you don't want to go to the game, Dulio?
I'm working out.
I'm sick of tough guy Lane, even in a pre-hearing statement.
Collie has it all planned out, Coco.
We'll see. Coco's cell phone rang. He lifted the phone to his hand and raised his brows at Dulio when Fiore's personal number popped on the screen. Mr. Fiore.
You have a new number?
You know, you can't be too careful.
Let me know next time you change your phone,
said Fiore. Yes, sir.
I wanted to wish you luck with Lane in your deposition this morning.
Thank you, sir.
I trust your testimony will be in line with what we discussed in Boston last week.
I understand.
Understand this. Your relationship with Charlie DePiero is in the past. Charlie DePiero is now demented in a nursing home somewhere. You say you have no idea where. Think of him when you testify, not as Charlie DePiero, but as Charlie Diaper. Because that poor slob doesn't even know what year it is and he lays in bed peeing in his shorts.
Yes, sir.
Have a nice day.
With a cigarette in his mouth, Coco stared at the phone.
I'll remember that.
Remember what?
Asked Dulio. Fiore just called the boss, Charlie Diaper. Dulio's brows went up.
No respect.
None.
You taking the fifth?
Dulio, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do.
You think you can simply roll the ball down the alley to the pins?
Oh, sure.
Well, I don't want any coffee.
Shouted Lark, taking another swig of the blue cup. Coco headed along the alleys toward East Crescent Street. And then he walked with some of the customers near the large wall murals. Jones leaned toward Franny. Coco's had it. Before Bucky began his approach to the lane, Uncle Dulio shouted with his hand cupped.
You're a stiff, Driscoll.
Bucky slid to a stop. Hey, you don't scare me, big boy. The huge Dulio stood and approached Bucky.
What are you gonna do about it, punk?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll, said Bucky, shrugging his shoulders. He produced a half swing and bounced the ball into the gutter.
You're still a stiff,
said Dulio as he started back to the Prince William side. Chet McLaughlin laughed and leaned against the ball return.
If you want lessons, Driscoll, I can help you.
Gee, thanks, said Bucky as he rolled another gutter ball. I have trouble with my balls. Chet bent over laughing as Franny fell onto Jones's shoulder. Bucky held the ball out, but it fell as he released it. Somehow the ball careened into 3 pins on the left. He walked back to the bench with his head down.
Tough luck, Buckster!
Lark, singing the old McDonald song, shuffled by Bucky. Chet, his head back, kept laughing in the next lane. Lark staggered up with his pink bowling ball and shuffled to the line. Then he faced the crowd. This should be interesting, said Franny, emitting a few more laughs.
I learned to bowl from Spud Pomeroy at the old Bearcat Ellie's in Newtown,
said Lark. Spud Pomeroy, said Jones. I haven't heard that one. Probably played football with Snooky McKenzie, said Franny. Come on, Lark, just bowl, said Jones.
I'll give it the old spinneroonie,
said Lark as he turned.
Guaranteed to knock 'em all down.
This is becoming ridiculous, said Jones. He heard a high-pitched whooshing noise and then a weird pop from the front. Franny was about to speak when the Bolorama lights went out. What was that? Asked Jones as Franny slipped her arm around him. Jones soon realized what he had heard was gunfire. He pushed Franny to the floor and covered his body over her. The shooting stopped just as soon as it had started, and the alley erupted with screaming, panicked patrons. Stay down, Franny. Coco's voice grew louder as a flashlight shone across the promenade. Calm down! Everybody, calm down! Half a minute later, the flashlight beam illuminated the game room. Within seconds, all the lights popped on, and Coco ran from the game room open. Dulio, over here! Winky's down! Jones looked up and then to his left. Lark, face down in the wood alley, was not moving. To his left, Dulio trotted toward the game room. The skinny Flo Nightingale began screaming in the gallery.
Lark! Lark! You've been murdered!
Strickland knelt next to Lark as the pandemonium persisted. Stay on the floor, Franny, said Jones. She held his hand. Matthias, don't risk your life. Whoever was shooting is long gone, said Jones as he stood and ran over to Lark. I'll call 911. George, where was he hit?
Hit?
Asked Strickland on one knee.
He's not hit, he's sloshed.